The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
First Speaking Podcast comes to you here on September 17, 2020. How are you guys doing? Another, first show in about 6 days, I think it was. And by the way, the last episode we did with my friend Josephine Zoni, very popular episode. Got nice numbers in that episode, especially. Thanks to people who tuned in for the show. It was a great conversation. She'll be back on the show again sometime, probably October. As I said, we were talking about possibly doing the election, talk about the debates after, whatnot. So hopefully, after the presidential debates, we'll probably have her on the show. Well, we're going to have her on the show recapping the debates, sometime in mid-October. But again, I appreciate you guys tuning in to the show, the podcast last week. Phenomenal time with Josie, and with, and of course people checking in and asking questions and stuff. I really appreciate it. Of course, this podcast you can subscribe to on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitch Radio, and soon to be Amazon. Amazon is going to be the next platform you'll be seeing the show hopefully in the next couple of days. I sent in what do you call it? Not a resume because it's not a job, but I sent in the information to make that possible. So hopefully you'll be seeing this podcast, the Earnestly podcast, as well as my wrestling podcast, Take 3 Wrestling, on the Amazon platform as well. So, anyway, that being said, this week, I want to touch on this real quick. A couple of things I'm talking about, of course, about the NFL season, week 1, week 2 picks, and, the NBA playoffs, of course. A couple of things I'm talking about Metallica's new album. I haven't had a chance to review on this platform yet, and other things. But this week, actually, is, today's Thursday, and tomorrow's Friday, so therefore, tomorrow will be the completion of the 4th week of my son, Eli, my 7-year-old son, second grader now, Eli's, 4th week into virtual schooling. Now, I said on the show weeks ago, before this all started, back in mid-August, early August, that I was terrified of just going into this whole thing, doing virtual learning. Because, again, especially some of the things that the school threw at us last minute, in some of the rules and whatnot, and knowing my kid, knowing how the behavior, knowing how he may have trouble adjusting to some degree. But I gotta be honest with you, all considering everything that's happened with the situation, he's done a pretty good job. Now, there's been moments, of course, obviously first off, they want to do the same hours. They're doing the same hours as he would be at school, 8 to 3. Which I had a problem with initially, because there's no way I could see my kid be on a computer all day long, 7 hours a day, or close to 7 hours a day, plus having to do homework, of course, too, which also involves, screen time as well. And to me, it's not healthy, but I get why they're doing it. I mean, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the government mandate, especially since my son goes to charter school, and, the reason behind this is so, requirements are met. Again, all the political bullshit and mumbo jumbo is really what gets to me more than anything else. But I have to give my son Eli credit. He's done a phenomenal job, all considering. He's pushing him through. Like I said, there's been moments, obviously, he'll get bored or come downstairs or whatever and come, and he'll complain that, he's tired, it's a long days and that. And then he'll give like a quick 2-minute, break and go back to class. And he's okay again. So it hasn't been that bad. I'm just glad for me personally that I have to do this with only one kid. I can't imagine doing this with multiple kids. My son Logan, my 3-year-old, he is not ready for school yet. He's another year away from doing PPK. So, I have my sister. Now, granted, her kids are older. One in high school, other ones are, I think, age 10 and age 8. So it's not as, hers is a little older, so it's a little easier to navigate to some degree. And they've done a good job. My cousins has 3 kids, and they've done. I mean, there's been some not issues, but some strokes at times. But they've pushed through as well too. Look, my family has a lot of kids that are in school, and we are pushing through. My brother, my brother who has 2 daughters. One is just turned 8 last week. Another daughter who just started kindergarten last week. It's a challenge, and he's there at home having to do this during the day, and then have to work at night. It's a challenge, You know, people right now in this world are struggling. People in this world right now are meeting challenges head to head, and we have to give each other credit and cut some slack from people right now. People are hurting. So if people are on edge right now, and you see someone on edge, you may want to cut some slack. You know, I look, my son has done a good job at school, but is it still stressful to some degree? Absolutely. You you got the biggest problem with at least in my house. The biggest challenge has not been my oldest son going to school. It's been my youngest son having to adapt to it because he's not used to his older brother being home for school, so he thinks it's playtime for him as well. And we have to tell him, no, big brother's in school right now. You need to separate. Thank God we got a townhouse, because at least what we can do is we find ways to separate the boys, for those hours. So our day starts like this. I wake up about 7:30, 7:40 in the morning. Wake up my son. We put him downstairs. Start the day downstairs. Make him breakfast. He starts class about 8 o'clock, 8:15, depending on the time the teacher logs in on Zoom. And he starts the day downstairs. I go back upstairs because even on my work days I don't work till 11 o'clock. So I go back upstairs. My youngest son at that point will be up already, watching cartoons or watching, just playing on his tablet or whatever. So we'll stay upstairs for the next hour, hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours, depending on how I'm feeling. And then once we start making our way downstairs, we tell our son to go back upstairs. The easy thing is that he's doing this on an iPad, so it's not like he's carrying a big computer with him. Not a big deal, So by him going upstairs, we go downstairs, we switch up there, set him up upstairs, and then in the next hour or so before lunch, we're downstairs, and then depending who's home, if I'm home, I make lunch. If I'm not home, the wife makes lunch, or on one of the days of the week, grandma. Grammy comes in, comes from my wife's mother, will watch the kids one day a week or twice a week either, but one of the days at school, she'll make lunch for my oldest son, and then about 11:30, he has lunch. And then he goes back upstairs, or whatever, depending on where we are in the house, wherever we're going to go in the house, he goes to the opposite place to keep the boys separate. And it has worked out for the most part. Like I said, there's been some bumps and bruises. Like today was a little bit of bumps. Like there was, my youngest son Logan wanted to go upstairs and hang out with his brother, but we had to separate them, and he didn't like that. He started crying. So it's been harder on my youngest son more than anything else. My oldest son has been able to adapt for the most part, and that's something I have to give him credit for too. He's really good at adapting to situations, and I think I have to give him more credit. I don't think I give him enough credit for that. But he's done a good job adapting to situations, and you have to, I have to give him credit for it, for being a big boy about it. And, cause it's not easy. This whole thing's not been easy for the last 6 months. First of all, he's a social butterfly. He's an extrovert like I am. Okay. He likes to be at school. He likes school, likes friends, loves his friends. So he likes to be at school all the time. You know what I mean? So being away from his cousins who most of his cousins live outside the state, friends, not being able to see his friends for a while, it's been a little rough on him. He's said many times that he misses his cousins, he misses his friends. And since March, when we started this, lockdown, the pandemic, when the pandemic went to ratchet it up, it's been March. We're now midway through September now, and there's really, nothing's changing. We're back in phase 2 here in Palm Beach County. Now the thing is, on this is, here's the deal what's going on now. So, schools open back up this week. Okay, and I think other schools opening up next week as well too in this county. Now, we had the option when we started the situation over the summer when my son's school, when Eli's school called us and contacted us and asked us how you want to operate. We had 3 choices, whether to go full-time virtual, full-time in school, or a mix of both, through 3 days at school, 2 days at home, or vice versa. And initially, we had actually said, let's do the mixture, the mix, the two and 2 home, 3 at school, whatever it was. I can't remember the exact number, but it was definitely a mix. And then we got closer to the start of school, and things were not improved. And remember, we had a spike in June and July. So obviously that pushed back that idea. In fact, school was pushed back 2 weeks as a result. When we got closer to school again, last month, I think about a week and a half before, week 4, or whatever it was, we were asked again, do we prefer to do, number one, we had to do virtual no matter what, but there was a plan in place to start school like as it is now. Do we want to do home or for the first quarter home or at school? And we said no, we're going to do home. So what we're doing now is we're going to ride out this first quarter, this first 9 weeks of school for my son, at home. We have him stay home and do virtual till the first quarter's over. We'll look at the numbers. We'll see exactly where they're at. If there's no spike in the numbers of COVID, of the coronavirus, and everything seems to be on the beaten. Everything seems to be not a beat path, but seems to be copacetic at that point. Then we'll probably have them go back to school physically for quarter number 2. If not, we'll keep them home. I like the fact that we're getting at least be able to make a choice. That's good because there's a lot of fear, and the fear on my end here isn't necessarily about me getting sick, my wife getting sick, my son, all that. Our fear really is our parents, specifically our mothers. My mother-in-law has some health challenges herself. We don't want her getting sick. My mom had health challenges recently too as well. I don't want her getting sick. And my mother-in-law, as I said, she watches our kids twice a week, and we need her, especially too. We need her. She's vital to what we do as a family, So we don't want her getting sick either. So there is concern more so on the extended portion of the situation, not so much in the internal. Look, if my son gets sick, he'll probably recover because he's a young kid. If I get sick, I'm fairly healthy. I'll recover. My wife, same thing too. My 3-year-old, I'm sure also too. And judging by the virus and how it affects people, people who are young, who are 40 or under, 50 or under, for the most part, do pretty well with it. And like I said, my position on this thing has been consistent. We got to open back up at some point. Because I'm feeling for people, especially with small businesses here. So you have to go back up at some point. I mean, obviously, wear your masks in stores. When you're outdoors, you don't need to wear a mask, obviously. But when you're in a store with people in there, be respectful and wear your mask. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, this group, I think it was in Fort Lauderdale, that walked into a Target, with like a group of like 10 people without a mask on, saying we're not gonna take it, with playing the song on the boombox. Like it's ridiculous. Just wear your fucking mask. You look like a fool. We're not telling you not to wear a mask outdoors, but in a private business, and especially people who consider themselves as law-abiding people or law and order, and here you are doing this shit. Like, stop. Wear your fucking mask. End discussion. So anyway, we're gonna keep our son home from school for the first 9 weeks, and then we'll reassess going forward with that as the numbers bear out in the first 5 weeks, the next 5 weeks of the school year. So I've really enjoyed the NBA playoffs, especially personally. The Heat being in the conference championship right now. Game 3, as I'm recording this, Game 3 will be, Game 2 rather, against the Boston Celtics will be tonight. But it's been really fun watching the playoffs, especially these last couple of weeks. But obviously the biggest shock of all is what happened in that Clippers Nuggets series. Game 7 was 2 nights ago. The Nuggets came back from a 3-1 deficit. I mean, the Clippers' choke job was insane. And the only way I can come away from that, really, is saying this, is that they are a cursed franchise to this day. And a franchise who's never even clinched a berth in a conference championship. And obviously you have to go down the list who to blame and whatnot. You gotta blame Doc Rivers. I mean, obviously Doc Rivers, to me, Doc Rivers gets blamed here equally with Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is the guy. He's the guy people anointed as the next, the best player in basketball. And a lot of people had him as the best player in basketball, especially after what he did in Toronto last year. And I'm not going to sit and knock Kawhi Leonard down because of the fact that, he didn't get the job done. But I think we have to reevaluate how we look at the scope of the top 3-4 players in the NBA. It's still LeBron. I think like we kind of get to believe in the hype all the time, But Kawhi, he belted. Like obviously Paul George played like crap in Game 7, and that's pretty clear. Paul George is a star, but he's not a superstar. He's clearly the number one guy. Clearly, he didn't show up. And he's came down small to mini-me in the series. Same thing he did also in OKC last year as well. He's definitely a number 2 guy. Some people say number 3, whatever. But number 2 is definitely, is a little more bearable. But it's just, how that series played out. The Clippers blowing big second half leads in games 5 and 6 when they could have closed that series out. They were the most talented team in the entire roster wise in the entire tournament, in my opinion. They were my pick to win the NBA championship. It's insane how this all played out the last couple days. Truly insane. Now, that being said, it doesn't make me uncomfortable with the fact that everybody does not give us a shot against the Lakers. That's what we saw here. Lakers obviously are very top heavy. LeBron, AD, two of the three best players in basketball. We can go there and say that. Arguably, two best players in basketball. Arguably. But the rest of the roster, granted, has been playing better. Last couple of games against Houston, especially. It still makes you stretch ahead. I mean, if Kuzma's not developing, if Danny Green's not playing well, if they have to rely on just AD and LeBron, which by the way, that's a pretty good lineup to, two guys to lean on at least. But at the same time, I don't know. It's just one of those things. I think, Denver, I got Lakers win the series in 6 anyway, but I think it will be competitive in spots. Especially with the fact that, Denver's feeling themselves now, a little bit. They have a good roster. They got a nice roster. They're not, there's no superstars there, but there's a lot of really, really above average players on that roster. And I mean, Jokic, Nikola Jokic, what a dominant game 7 he had against Clippers. I got Lakers in 6, but I think we'll be competitive in spots. Absolutely. Now, what I will say, with this in the playoffs, as we're now to the Final Four, as you guys know, I'm obviously a massive Miami Heat fan. The possibilities of a Heat Lakers finals. Now, I'm not getting ahead of myself. I remember I picked Boston win the series in 6 on social media, which I got a lot of shit for my fellow Heat fans fans on social media. But that would be my ultimate wet dream, honestly. The Heat Lakers finals. That would be my wet dream. Because imagine getting the opportunity to take down LeBron after leaving Miami 6 years later. And especially Eric Spoelstra, who got no credit for, especially with LeBron, got no credit for helping LeBron develop into the player he's become in the last, 6-7 years. You know what I'm saying? It actually, I mentioned this before in the podcast years back, but it obviously, didn't really harp on it much, but it does piss me off, actually, that LeBron gave no love to Spo. When LeBron did his letter, leaving Miami, no mention of Spo there either. It really bothers me, because I'm a big Eric Spoelstra fan. I've been, speaking his praises for a good while, even before LeBron got here. So it would mean the world to me if the Heat were to actually take play the Lakers and take them down in a series, in the finals for a championship. And by the way, I said on the episode last week, that this roster is one of my 3 to 4 favorite rosters we've ever had. Just because of it's fun, it's balanced, all that. So we'll see. Obviously, a long way to go. Game 2 is tonight. It's the Celtics. We'll see how that plays out. All right. NFL quick. Let's do some picks real quick for week 2 picks. Last week on my picks, as you know, I went 9-6-1 against the spread. Not a bad week. We'll see if we can improve on that. Lots of shocking, lots of narratives, I'd say, coming out of week 1. So let's get to the picks of week first. Tonight's game, first off, between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are right now 6-point favorites. The over-under is 43.5. Browns devastating loss against Baltimore last week. Cincinnati, even more devastating loss, losing on a botched field goal where their kicker had pulled a hammy, I think it was, or something of that nature, or Achilles. The Browns got embarrassed against Baltimore. I'm taking the over in this game. I think Cincinnati, Joe Burrow's obviously playing, first game in, really solid rookie debut for Joe Burrow. I want to pick the Browns to win this game. I think they will win this game, but I think the Browns are in trouble. The Browns are in trouble because those are just bad optics in week 1. I know it's Baltimore, but they weren't even competitive. So I'm going to take the over in this game, 43.5, between the Browns and the Bengals. All right. Next one here, we have my New York Football Giants head in Chicago face the Bears. The Bears right now are 5.5-point favorites. The over-under is 42.5. I emotionally put the Giants at number 32 in my power rankings this week because I was just so pissed at how they lost that game. Are they the worst team in football? Probably not. Probably the Jets are worse than they are. Maybe even say the other teams there. That said, I got the Bears win this game. What a comeback from Trubisky last week in the fourth quarter against the Lions. Well, the Bears have still lost that game. That drop by Marvin Williams or Marvin Jones rather, in the end zone against the Lions last week. But I'll take the Bears win this game. I don't think the Bears are any good, to be honest with you, but I'll take the Bears win this game against the lowly Giants team. All right, the Atlanta Falcons head to Dallas to face the Cowboys. The Cowboys right now are 4.5-point favorites. The over-under is 52.5. I'm not going to knock Atlanta here because of the fact that they played the team who I think will win the Super Bowl this year, the Seattle Seahawks. But I think that performance is Seattle was a phenomenal. Dallas, meanwhile, again, they probably should have won. They got screwed on a call against the Rams last week. I don't know. 52.5, give me over here in this game as well. Another divisional NFC North division game. Detroit Lions heading to Green Bay face the Packers. The Packers right now are 6-point favorites, over under 49.5. Phenomenal performance by Aaron Rodgers last week. Definitely reminding folks who they are. I'm still resistant on the Packers being an elite team right now. I think it's still right now it's 3-team race in the league between Baltimore, Kansas City, and Seattle for the best teams in football. But I will definitely put Green Bay in the next tier of teams. Another game opportunity to really make some noise, and I will take the Packers win and cover 6 points here as well. Jacksonville Jaguars heading to Tennessee face the Titans. The Titans are 9-point favorites. The over/under is 43 points. Tennessee barely eking out a win against Denver in Denver last Monday Night Football. The Jaguars are the shotgun win against Indianapolis. I'll take the Jaguars on the points. Titans win this game, I think, but I think I'll take the Jaguars on the points. I think the Jaguars are, we'll see, early games, no crowd, who knows? A lot of points there too. Give me the Jaguars here on the points. I do like Tennessee win this game overall though. The Minnesota Vikings heading to Indianapolis to face the Colts. The Colts are 3-point favorites. The over/under is 48 points. Not a bad debut for Phillip Rivers last week. Minnesota, disappointing loss against Green Bay at home. Give me the over in this game. Minnesota's defense looks kind of leaky too. So something to watch in the weeks to come. Let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Another game. Hold on. Make sure I got this right because I think I'm missing some games on this list. Let's see here. All right, there you go. All right. The Buffalo Bills heading to Miami to face the Dolphins. The Buffalo Bills are 5.5-point favorites. The over/under is 40.5. I like Miami in the points here. I was impressed with Buffalo for the most part. I do think it's a tough game because Miami's a little stingy there, and they're at home, and they're better than people give credit for. I like the Bills win this game overall, but I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a field goal game. But again, another team like Green Bay. Buffalo's another team looking at that, not quite tier 1, definitely that tier 2, maybe in tier 3 bracket. We'll see. Another game here, opportunity to make some noise. The San Francisco 49ers heading to New York to face the Jets. The Niners, a disappointing loss against Arizona, which I called, by the way. The Niners are 7-point favorites. The over/under is 42 points. Give me Niners here. The Jets are the worst team in football, even though my rankings didn't reflect that this week. The Jets are the worst team in football. And there you go. They'll cover all 7 points. The LA Rams going to Philadelphia face the Eagles. The Rams right now are 1-point favorites. The over/under is 45.5. I think the Eagles will bounce back here and win this game outright. Rams is still a solid team. We'll see if they can make some noise as well too. But disappointing loss to the Eagles last week against Washington, though. I'll tell you that. The Denver, I almost said Nuggets. The Denver Broncos heading to Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. The over/under is 41 points. The Steelers are 7.5-point favorites. Denver, tough. Like I said, tough performance against in the loss against Tennessee. But Steelers look really good on Monday Night Football. I'm gonna take them here. They're back. Big Ben's back. That defense is solid. They can cover 9 points at home. That shouldn't be a problem. The Carolina Panthers head to Tampa and face Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs are right now 9.5-point favorites. The over/under is 47.5. Quite a debut for Tom Brady. Had good moments, had some bad moments. What I've been saying since Sunday is remember there was barely any camp, barely no scrimmages, no preseason here pretty much. Tom Brady needs at least 4 weeks before we can judge it. I'm not going to judge Tom Brady right now, especially since there were some good moments too. And he's played one of the best teams in football this year, last week as well. So let's give him a little credit there. Give the Bucs to cover. I think the Bucs will win and cover. I think you'll see the first great Brady game in Tampa. The Washington Redskins heading to Arizona to face the Cardinals. Should I say Washington football team heading to Arizona to face the Cardinals. Right now, the Cardinals are 7-point favorites. The over/under is 47.5. I like the over in this game. I'm not sure how good Washington is yet. I mean, that was a pretty sick comeback against the NFC East champs last week in the Eagles. I'm kind of curious to see how good they're going to be this year. So give me the over in this game. We'll see. But I like Arizona. I like what they're doing. I like Kyler Murray, another great performance last week. All right, the Kansas City Chiefs heading to L.A. to face the Chargers. The Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites. The Chargers, over-under is 47.5. Chargers defense is really good, but that said, this is Mahomes. This is KC. I like KC Chiefs to cover 8.5 points. The Baltimore Ravens heading to Houston face the Rockets. The Rockets. Head to Baltimore. You head to Houston to face the Texans. The Ravens are 7-point favorites. Over/under is 51.5. The Ravens. I don't know. I'm tempted to take him, but I think Houston bounces back here. I like the Ravens to win this game overall, but Houston I think will keep it close after that performance last week against KC. What a year open the year. If you're the Texans, you open the year, your first 2 weeks against the Chiefs and against the Ravens, the two best teams in the AFC in my opinion. That's wide opening. All right, New England Patriots heading to Seattle to face the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks right now are 4-point favorites. The over/under is 45 points. Cam Newton, solid debut last week. Very old schoolish Patriots performance. Very defensive minded, hold the ball, all that, old school Belichick. I like Seattle though here. Russell Wilson, to me, this is the year that Russell Wilson breaks free, becomes MVP, Super Bowl MVP, wins Super Bowl, all that. This is the year where he gets zero pushback on the MVP and his Hall of Fame credentials. That's it. So Seattle by 4 points. And finally, Monday Football, we have the New Orleans Saints heading to Las Vegas to face the Raiders. The Saints right now are 5.5-point favorites. The over/under is 49 points. I like the over in this game. Saints, really good game against the Bucks last week. Still skeptical overall. We'll see how the weeks go. Obviously, no Michael Thomas this week too, especially going to hurt. But I like the over in this game. Give me the over. I think Drew Brees and Derek Carr might have a little shootout this week on Monday Football. And there you go. Those are your picks for the week 2 of the NFL season. So we are now about less than 50 days from the presidential election. I think it's like 46 days, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to. Don't quote me on that because I'm not sure I'm right on that. But it's definitely under 50 days. I think it's like between 46 and 45 days till the election. It's November 3rd. Go vote, please. And polls are starting to tighten a little, which to be expected. No, now from my vantage point, I've said, in the last couple episodes, what was it, Mark? Or even last week with Josie, or even on a solo episode, wherever I did one. After the debates, I was starting to feel a little bit of a groundswell of Trump support. Now, granted, it could be because I live in Florida, that even though I live in a blue county, there's a lot of very loud Trump supporters here. Some I'm friends with, some I do know. I don't judge them. They have the right to support who they want to support, And it's starting to feel a little bit of groundswell. It's clearly of the two candidates, Trump definitely has the the enthusiasm, if you will. Now, the enthusiasm on the other side of that is not necessarily enthusiasm for Biden. It's more so that it's anti-Trump enthusiasm. There's more people who want Trump out of office, but not necessarily like Joe Biden. There's a lot of people I know who don't really care for Joe Biden, who are going to vote Joe Biden anyway. I'm not necessarily a Joe Biden guy. Not necessarily because I don't like the guy. It's more so the fact that I'm going to be blunt here. I've been saying this. 78 years old. Or he'll be 78 at inauguration, assuming he wins the election. He sometimes looks incoherent to me. That's just my opinion. But whatever. Right now, according to the polls I trust, 538, especially one major polls I trust, Joe Biden right now is up by a hair under 7%, 6.9% to be exact. So there's been a little bit of tightening. Joe Biden was up by 9 points about a month ago. I think there were some polls even back in July had him up by 10 nationally, which I never really honestly believed that. I've always felt there would be a little bit of a tightening once things start to get closer. But I will say he's definitely performing better right now. He's still pulling outside the margin of error and polling better than Hillary Clinton did at this point in the election. And we don't expect a October surprise here at this point. All the numbers seem to be baked in for the most part. Like I've already said that the amount of people who are on the fence is probably a lot less than people give credit for. I think most people know who they're voting for. I think you might have. I think the percentage of people who are still undecided, for example, undecided voters, is a lot less. The only obstacle left in this election with 7 weeks ago really is the debates, which start in 2 weeks. And September 29th, I believe, is the first one with Chris Wallace, what love from Fox News. We'll be moderating that one. This is the last obstacle really for both candidates. Obstacle for if Joe Biden could do well on these debates, he can put distance between himself and Trump. Trump can also flip the election on his axis if he does well in the debates. And after the debates, because they're not campaigning, I mean, Trump's campaigning to some degree at airport hangars in different cities, but it's not the same thing. It's the same vigorous schedule as it would be if there were no COVID-19. You know what I'm saying? Now also, and people have said this too, also when pertaining to the debates, and this could be Joe Biden's undoing and stuff, because I really believe that most of those numbers are already baked in, that people are already scotched who they're going to vote for, whether it be Trump or Biden or third party. I'm already skeptical believing whether the debates will swing voters one way or the other in a big way. Because again, I think that undecided voters is much smaller this year. The percentage of undecided voters is much smaller this year than in previous years. And to be honest with you, let's be real. This election is going to come down really to honestly 5 states, in my opinion. Florida, obviously. Pennsylvania, which is Joe Biden's hometown. Minnesota is supposedly in play now. Now, although the recent polling last week have shown Minnesota, even though Trump was competitive there recently, there's been a little more distance in the last couple weeks with voting. Let's keep an eye on Minnesota, obviously, especially with the fact that all the writing going on there post George Floyd and all that. Arizona's in play now, especially for Joe Biden. In fact, Joe Biden's leading all the polls in Arizona. And North Carolina, which has been one of the tightest races in the country, swing states. Now, you notice I didn't say Ohio. And the reason I didn't say Ohio is this. I think Ohio's going to Trump regardless. Trump is polling outside margin of error. And Ohio's always been important in the election every 4 years. But I don't think this year's going to matter. I think people like me already know Ohio's going to Trump. I'm confident in that, especially. But because Arizona's in play for Biden, he doesn't need Ohio, because Arizona would be the new Ohio for Biden, assuming he wins that state. So he doesn't really need Ohio in the same way. Whereas if Arizona was still going to Trump, or guaranteed to go to Trump, then through the story. So it's gonna be an interesting situation. And see how it plays out. Right now, I have my Trump reelection chances right now at 45%. I believe that is up from 42. I can't remember exactly when I did the last one of these. It was definitely under 45%. I actually gave him a little more credit now. Like I said, the tightening of the polls is happening. I was watching Bill Maher, by the way, today, actually, last week's episode. And he was talking about how Nate Silver, 538, was talking about how, Joe Biden could win the popular vote by 1% and still lose the election. The percentage of chance of him winning the election is actually very low. If Joe Biden wins 2 to 3% of the popular vote, there's a 22% chance he still loses the election overall, the electoral college. Whereas he would basically what it's saying is that Joe Biden will need to poll not just outside margin of error, but way outside margin of error. You're talking about 5, 6, 7 points out to get that percentage number over to 90% or something of that nature, 80%, what it was. Listen, folks, just vote. So I'm gonna tell you, if you don't want Trump to win the election, go vote. If you want Trump to win the election, go vote. Obviously, whatever. Just vote. Use your American privilege. That's all I'm gonna say about that. I'm not gonna tell you how to vote. Whatever. That's not my business. Do what you gotta do. But like I said, this is the chance to have your voice be heard is in the polls. Now, speaking of the debates and all that, Joe Rogan has offered to moderate a possible 4th debate. Now, look, that will never happen. It's not going to happen. It's just talk speak and media stuff and all that. But Trump jumped on the chance and accepted that, which is obvious because that's what Trump does. No word on Joe Biden. And if I'm Joe Biden, honestly, you're better off not even paying attention to this in all honesty. It's a lose-lose proposition for you. Don't even bother. Don't even acknowledge the situation with Joe Rogan. I mean, I like Joe Rogan. I listen to the show all the time. But Joe Rogan, the one thing I will say, it would feel more authentic if Joe Rogan's doing it only because Joe Rogan is more of the people's person, the people's guy, like the new Howard Stern, the relatable quote unquote journalist. He'll ask questions probably that are a little more basic to the common sense of America, but we also do need adults in the room too. I'm not trying to insult Joe Rogan here, but we do need adults and real journalists in the room as well too that we trust. I like Chris Wallace. Chris Wallace will ask good questions. Chris Wallace interview with Trump back in July was phenomenal. I praised it on this podcast. I told you that already. So yeah, it's not gonna happen obviously, but it was just a little piece of news that came out this week that I was really interested to talk about. Okay, finally before I go, I've been watching recently. Although I slowed down big time on it recently, but watching The Boys on Amazon. Finally got the chance to watch a little bit of that. I watched the first couple episodes of the season 1. I know season 2 just came out like 2 weeks ago. They dropped the first 3 episodes on there, and then they dropped another episode last week. I like the show a lot. It has a very Deadpoolish vibe to it. Now I've slowed down majorly on the show, like watching it because of the NBA playoffs ratcheting up, of course. NBA playoffs, NFL's back, all that. So, Amazon, like I said, is releasing the season. This season, like last year, they released the entire season in one scoop, one down, 8 episodes. This year, they're doing it whereas once a week. Like I said, they dropped 3 the first week, and then dropped another one last week. I feel like Amazon's doing this likely to hook subscribers going forward to stick around longer than they would have just to binge one show in pretty much one sitting. I don't know if I like it or not. I have mixed views with it. In that whether it's effective or a effective strategy for not just Amazon but other services like Netflix or HBO, whatever it may be. I get why they're doing it. I whatever, as a business person, I would definitely try that. But it might piss off some customers who prefer to have your entire show gift wrapped in one spot and just given to you, and the whole entire season. That's it, instead of giving it one by one. What I will say is this though, and I've said this many times on the show about how like Game of Thrones was like the last great appointment viewing show we had in our culture because of the way we take TV. I love watching Game of Thrones in the moment because I love hearing the reactions at 10 o'clock after the show's over, and going on social media and getting everybody's reactions and stuff. And like, you don't have that anymore. That was our last show we had of that. I think Walking Dead was the other one, but no, every other show people watch today, they watch in their own times. And I get that. And I think companies are trying to see if they can also recreate that. But I also think it's a financial incentive. If a show is drawing out, let's say you have a 12 episode show you want to put out every week, you can hook customers to your service for about 3 months at $10 a pop. So I get that. There's a financial incentive to doing that way as well too. Just saying. I don't know which one I prefer, to be honest with you. I don't. I watch so much things anyway that to me it doesn't really matter. I watch pro wrestling every week. I watch between Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and AEW. That's about 8 to 12 hours of wrestling a week I'm watching. So sometimes these shows slip through the cracks anyway for me. So it takes a season for me. It takes a while for me to watch the entire season. So I don't know, but yeah, mixed views on that. But the show, The Boys, I definitely recommend watching it. It's really, really good. And I'm only in the middle of season 1 right now, 8 episodes, and I'll hopefully be caught up. By next week. I was saying this weekend, but I don't think I'll be able to get through it this weekend. Especially with the football being back, and the Heat in the playoffs and all that. So, and finally, and I should have done this a couple weeks ago, but time, didn't have time to do anything. Metallica's new album came out last week, S&M 2. It is the second installment of the S&M, I won't say franchise, but the second time they've done this, Symphony Metallica. They did his first one back in 1999. Back then, Jason was in the band. He's not here anymore. Rob Trujillo's in the band now. It's funny. The album came out August 28th. I still haven't listened to the other songs on the album, other than the newer songs. The only songs I listened to on this album so far are the newer songs that came out on Saint Anger, Death Magnetic, and Hardwired, Self-Destruct. The last albums after the first S&M. That's really what I really want to hear. Because all those songs on there, other than say Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth, were songs that were done on the first S&M, on the original one. To me, of the new songs, Moth the Flame was the best interpretation of the symphony. Really, really good. It stayed so close to. It was still very heavy with the symphony. I thought that Unforgiven 3 also was amazing, given the fact that it was solely just James on vocals. Very stripped down. Hearing James do that live no guitar, just him singing live, amazing. I will say on this version, this S&M, they definitely took more chances on this one. You know, for starters, this was done in the actual arena. Remember, this was done in the at the Chase Arena. You know, where the Warriors played new place for the Warriors in San Francisco. So the stage was a little bit different in the middle as opposed to just being in Berkeley. You know, the first one was done in Berkeley, the Berkeley Auditorium back in '99. Which is what was, if you look at it was definitely much more restricted. It seated like maybe 2,000 people, 3,000 people, maybe a little more than that. But whereas this one seated like 18, 20,000 people. It was so restricted, but it was more restrictive for the first one in comparison in terms of space. I think the band being used to this now and done this quite a few times now, the symphony, you know, they felt more comfortable doing it this way, even 20 years apart. Now, if you ask me if I prefer the first, second one, I do prefer the first one by a smidge, only because in that one, they actually brought two brand spanking new songs for that project. No Leaf Clover being, of course, one, which was a single on that record, and Minus Human. So I think for that, only because of that, but I think the chances they took on this one was pretty sick. You know, and they already were used to it. Whereas they felt more naked the first time because it was never done before. You know, it was never done before. So that's I think always like all movies, you always prefer the first one because it's the first one. It was always the best one. It was the chances taken on that. So I think S&M 1 is still my favorite of the two, but S&M 2 is pretty darn good. I'm really enjoying it. And at some point I will listen to the newer songs. And also they were younger. They were also a lot younger. So, you know, Lars did more fills and, you know, James's voice, you know, I like his voice now, of course, and they had Jason. Look, I love Rob Trujillo. I think he's phenomenal. But my favorite member of Metallica of all time is Jason Newsted. It's that simple. So, you know, there's that there. So, but check it out if you get a chance. SM2, it's out now. It came August 28th. It's out now, on all streaming services and all that. And that will be the podcast for today. Thanks guys for listening to the podcast. Had a good time, and we'll be back to the next one. Until then, love you guys. Take care and see ya. Thank you.